Hello guys, I'm Alimul Karim. You could reach me at alimkarim.com. Today I'm going to talk about ASP.NET MVC Basics for beginners. It's going to be a little bit big video for beginners who wants to run an ASP.NET MVC. So it's going to be very detailed, what you need to know as a beginner. So I'm assuming that you know C# OOP programming, database concepts, and few of the programming skills with collections and so on. So I'm in Visual Studio. Let's start with a new project. Here from web, I'm going to select the ASP.NET web application and give a name of my project, and let's say it's simple MVC app, and that's going to be our namespace. And for the folders, I'm going to choose this path, and this folder will be uploaded to GitHub. So if you look at the description, you could get the files from the GitHub. I'm going to leave it as empty, both of those, and create it. And here it's quite confusing for beginner actually. Click on MVC and you're going to see that these things are checked. So it doesn't matter where you pick, whatever you like, whatever the features that you want, you can just check those and add those to your project. It's not like you have to add it at first and then you cannot add it. You can add it at any time you want. However, at the beginning, if you add those things, then a lot of the reference will be added by default, so you don't have to go through and do things. So for beginners, I think checking one of those will be the best way to go. And since we're doing MVCs, I'm just choosing the MVC one. Then OK. So here our first project is created. So I have my congratulations. If I run it without debugging, congratulations, we have done it. So first time it will take some time to load. Don't worry about it. If you click on the links, you'll see some nice URLs, and if you look at the project, there are actually a couple of folders, and the MVC actually stands for model, view, and controller. And the M, the model, actually represents the data, where you put your data information, something like that. And view is your client layer, where you're seeing the things, these things. This is actually the view. And the controller, which actually controls that how to get to the view. That's the simplest example. The idea of the MVC is convention over configurations. If you create any controller, the convention would be the controller name and then the method name. That's the idea. If you just go to the home controller, and if you see that there are actually three methods. So there are actually these three methods, and each of these methods returns a view, and the view would be placed in the views folder with the same controller name, with the same name of the method. This is the convention. Without looking at any configuration, I know based on the convention that the files would be there. So this is how MVC got more popular, because many developers could write things differently. So rather than doing that, what if we have a convention where people would know that here's the things? So that's the idea. If I create another one of the method, let's say public string, here you're seeing that it's action result. Rather than sending an action result, I'm sending a string and I'm saying it hello. Just keep it simple. In the hello, I'm just sending it hello world. That's it. So if we just build it now in the controller, so I know there's a convention, no configuration. I haven't done any configuration. So if I just say hello, I should reach that method. That's the idea, and I got it. I'm just sending a string. That's why it's sending the whole string. However, here you are seeing the view, so that's why it's actually returning a view, and the view is consist of HTML. It's actually a Razor view, which actually consists of C# and your HTML, but whole idea is ultimate result would be an HTML. If you're good with HTML, you could make anything. So here we are in our first method. So rather than sending a just hello, I'm going to send a HTML this time, only the H1 tag, because H1 tags are bolder than the simple ones. After just rewriting things, I also have to build it, because if you don't build it, you'll not see the progress, because it will pulling it from the previous build. I am here using the start without debugging, so I don't have to run the project over and over again. So if you click on this one, start with debugging, then you might have to run the project over and over again. So there are two differences. So if you go to this debugging, you will find this start without debugging. So I put it in there for my fast experience. If I just refresh it, you're going to see that this is in bold. That's the primary idea. Actually, this view is actually returning an HTML. So how it's actually returning the whole thing, because here I am only seeing the h1 hello tag. However, in the view, if I just go there, there's only this simple view. There is no navigation or headers like this, but it's actually displaying those things. So how it's going to happen? Primary idea of the view, when you actually call it, it first go to this share folder, and then it goes to this view start folder, view start.cshtml file, and in this cshtml file it actually looks for the view. This tilde sign means the root of the project, and then the views folder, this views folder, and then shared, the shared folder, and then underscore layout.cshtml. So first thing it picks is this one, and it has everything for HTML header, icon bars, navigation, and everything. Here is the navigations for each of the URLs and so on. And here you are going to see that render body, and render body is going to render this view. By convention, when you say this view, it's going to go there and then pick out this layout, and in the layout it says the render body. In the render body is going to put this content, contract content, or about content. The idea is like this. Let's actually make our own view. To return a view, you could actually set it as action result. So when you actually set it as action result, it's actually looking for a view or something like that, some type of similar type of data. We make our next example view, and this time we're going to actually make it our own view rather than copying from this one. To do that, we just right click on the method and then create a view. Just say example view. We keep it as it is. We're not changing any convention yet. Example view. In the example view, we just try to write something meaningful to us so that we understand that view is coming as we have told earlier. Example HTML view, let's say. So let's just build it, and the convention would be, if I'm in the controller, so example view. So home/example view. This time, rather than sending a string, it should give me those headers and things like that. So that's the idea. So we have done it successfully. Now it's time to do some work with the database. So far we have understand how controllers work, how convention works. It's good, but we need to create some database. That's our idea. So to work with database, you need to create some classes in models. There are three ways that you could work with MVC. One is code first, database first. I say DB first, keep it simple, and the last one is model first. Either one you choose, it's actually based on your preference, whatever you like. And some of the confusion arises among people that in database first you need a pre-existing database. That's actually not the idea. In database first you always need the database. Database first, you're designing the database first. It doesn't matter that if you have a old database, it doesn't matter. It doesn't work like that. So if you like to design databases, then you pick database first. If you like to do coding first, then you do the code first. So whatever you pick, the ultimate result will be same. This is actually said by Microsoft, Eric Miller, who actually developed the Entity Framework, and we're going to do things with the Entity Framework, so that's why it's actually relevant. Here I'm going to use code first. I also have a video of database first, so if you like database designing, so you could watch that video and work with it. To do code first, you just have to create a new class. It's nothing different. If you know object-oriented programming, it's just a simple class. To do that, we're going to create a person class, the basic example that everyone gives. In a person, so these are the short terms in Visual Studio. So if you write prop, P-R-O-P, and then hit tab, you're going to get this autocomplete. I'm going to keep my things as convention. By convention, if you want to have ID, primary key ID field in your database table, you just name your column or name your property as ID. When you actually build a system with this, So convention will automatically know that this is your primary key. So if you want to have some different name, then you can also choose your primary key by having an annotation of key. It really depends what kind of person you are or what type of things that you like, but I like to go with the convention rather than changing things. So there are actually two ways to keep the convention. One way is keeping it as ID, another way is keep it as class name and end it with ID. So there are two ways. So both of those will be picked as a primary key without having this annotation. It will know it by convention. That's the idea. So when it creates the database, it already knows that this is the primary key. It's going to create the indexes and so on. Next, we need some fields for, let's say, first names. We're keeping it as a string, first name. Let's say I want to have last name, and let's say date of birth. Just simple. I have done nothing fancy. So next thing, we need to actually tell it that it's going to be connected with a database. To do that, we need to create another class, and this class has to be inherited from a DB context class. I name it as context entities, but you could name it whatever that makes you happy. There is no convention. When you say DB context, you are going to see this IntelliSense. So you're going to importing the IntelliSense entity, and then if you write ctor, you're going to get the constructor for this class, and in the constructor you could actually call the base constructor as well. So if you just keep it this way, it would be just fine. But if you have any, let's say, connection string, you could have connection strings in your web config, which actually tells which database to look at. So if you don't give a connection string, if you just keep it blank, it's going to create the database with your existing SQL server, SQL Express management system or SQL server. So whatever system that you have installed, it's going to be connected with this one. So if you want to be explicit, you just give it a name, and name would be defined in here. That's the idea. We're not going to define it. We're going to keep it as the convention goes. Here we're going to actually put the database tables. To add the database table, we need a data DB set object, and in the DB set is a generic object. Here we're going to just say our table name or the type of thing that we want as a DB set, the person, and person we would like to keep it as a table people. So in the database, it's going to save the table as people. So far so good. Now I have to tell my package manager to create that database. To do that, I'm in my package manager console, and if you don't have that package manager console, you could just go in the NuCode package manager and you could select this one. So you'll get this one. First one, I will try to write the enable migration. We'll see enable migration. So I might get an error. That's fine, because I have two actually DB context. This one is actually given default by the system. I do not want to modify or change anything here. Keep it simple. I'm just going to use this parameters as it says, context name, and then we're going to use this one, our context entities. That's our idea. Now it's going to create the database. So my database is created. So if I go to SQL Management Studio, and to have the database same as my code, I just have to run the database update command. There is an update database command, and here also I have to actually make it specific because I have two. Okay, no problem. Just try to update it. In the migration, I'd like to keep it as true, and then try again. Okay, done. If I now go to my SQL Express, here I'm going to see that simple MVC app.model.context. I have that database. Here, as you see that the name of the database is not that good. It's actually picking everything up. So if you want your own convention or your own database name, you just write the connection string. That's the idea. Database column is created. Person ID is my primary key, first name ID, and so on. Date time is also given. So here, as you can see that the first name is given as n4char. So n4char is a Unicode character system, so supports Unicode. So max means it's going to support 4,000 characters, which is a huge length, but I don't want my first name to be that long. To make it actually simple or restricted, we could actually use these data annotations. Here there is a annotation called string run, and let's say I want it to be 40 characters, and last name also I want to be 40 characters, and after that I just have to run the update database. If you just look at there, it says that there is going to be data loss because I have minimized the data length from max to actually 40 characters, so there is going to be a data loss. To do that by forcefully, you just have to add a force parameter, and it's going to change everything. So here, if I actually refresh my database and varchar 40, seems nice. And if you want anything to be actually not now, you could just add a annotation called required. So if you add that, and if we again update it, we're going to see that it's not now. Okay, so that's the basic idea. So it was maybe null before, so let's really try it this one. Date time is going to be not now all the time, so this one, so we just refresh it. Yes, not now. So date time is going to be by default not now. So I want first name also be not now. So by doing this, you could actually modify your database, which I actually don't like that much, but this is the simplest way to show it quickly. So our database is done. So now we need the CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete. To do that, I'm going to use that controller creation, and from this I'm going to choose the MVC5 controller with read write actions, and I'm going to write it as people. So my controller would be people controller, so the convention would be my website name, then people, and then my actions is the method name. So here every actually action is written, but there is no actually code to actually make it happen directly, so you have to write that, or we have to write that to make it work. The first thing is to get in touch with the database, we have to create that context. That's the idea. We have to think of this context as the whole database. So first I'm going to create that context. We could do it privately as well. So let's just create it as context as dp new. Done. So in the index page, what I want is show the detail or the list of the items that's actually there as a person. To do that, I'm just going to cast the people and then say to list. So to list, when you actually execute that to list, it's going to give me the data of all people in the database and put it in there. So it's going to just execute that SQL query behind the scene, select star from people, and then make it all to the object-oriented person. Here I will have a collection of person, so it would be a collection or list of a person. So that's the idea. So I could actually evaluate through it, and in the view I'm just going to pass the people. That's the idea. So my view is not there, so if you just look at it, there is no view from the people class. So here I'm going to create a view. Here I also have a template option. From the template option, I'm going to choose the list, and I also have some options to choose the model, and I'm going to choose the person model, and in the context I'm going to choose my context. And then it's not going to be partial. Partial means do not add the other headers or the navigation or things like that. That's what I have shown earlier. Do not add those things if I actually choose it as partial, but I want to add those things, so I'm leaving it as empty. So if I now look at my index.cshtml, I can see that there is a nice HTML representation is already generated based on my model. So it automatically generates or checks out that it's a person because I've selected from the generation. So it's already going to be pick out every of the properties from the model. Very nice and very detailed. And it's going to actually pull it up from the model is going to be what you have put it there. So it's IMutable, so it means it's a type of list, and from that type of list we're going to pick each one, and from each one we're going to displaying the data, first name, last name, and so on. For there is also going to be edit, details, and delete links, and based on that delete links, so if you just go to this one, this action link, it's actually returns something like this, href. So in the href there is going to be the link. So link is actually given or generated by the idea that for the parameter you pass. So first one is the name of the link. So what do you want to be passed in here? So what would be their display? So you could write a display. So whatever you write in here, it's going to be here as your display. And next, which action that you wanted to actually pick from. So when you do not have any controller specific, it's going to pick your own controller where you have actually generated it. So it's going to pick this people controller. But if you want to go to a different controller, so you could actually use, there are actually other parameter, controller name. So if you want to go to, let's say, home controller, you just say home. So then the route will be like this. That first one would be home, and then there is the edit because you are picking this action. So that's the idea about this action links. And since there is an ID, so it's going to give the ID at the bottom, at the last, you can say. So how it's going to be generated? So now we're going to talk about that. So it's actually generated from this route config.css. So in here you're going to see that there is a basic default route, and in this basic default route it says that there's going to be controller, there's going to be action, and there is going to be the ID. So action represents the methods and controller represents the controllers, these. So now if I just remove these curly braces, then it means something different. When you don't have any curly brace, it means a hard-coded value like this one, controller. So if I put it like this, then it always expects the controller hard-coded value, not the controller from these one of those, not that. So it's going to look for the hard-coded value. It could be uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter. And then an action means the method, any of the method, and by default it's going to pick the home controller. That's the idea. So by default you could actually give it there. So for the first time when it runs, if I don't give anything, so it knows that it has to go to the index page because the by default is the index. So that's how it's actually picking that index method. So in the home controller, the index method is picked without saying the index / index. So by default it's going to be always index. So if you just write controller name, it's going to pick the action by default as index. So that's the idea. So if you want, you could actually make your own convention. You could add your new routes. That's the idea. We don't actually want to break things. We keep it as it is. As you can see, when I don't have anything, it's going to go to the index method in the home controller. And let's say I go to my people, and when I go to the people, it automatically picks out that index view. And if I actually rename it, and it will make more sense if we actually rename it, and if I refresh it, we're going to get an error. That's the idea. And it actually tells you how it's actually looks for. So first these are actually look for, and then it's actually looks for this CS HTML. So none of this exists, so that's why it's actually giving this error. So we know that where the file should be, so we're renaming it. And let's say we give it a people index so that it makes more sense. I just refresh it. So here we have our people indexes. Now when we actually create the create button, it's actually showing that people / create. So if I just go to my people controller, there is create method, and here no code is written. So if I just click on it, I should get the same error. So I have to actually create that create view. To do that, I'm just using that view, create view, and then I am choosing my person. I'm choosing the template from create view, so it's going to give me a look like create view. Now I just have to, actually don't have to build because it's actually view actually dynamic. You don't have to build it. Here we have a nice view. However, if we just write things, we don't have any validations because we have set it as 40 characters. There is no validations. We're not getting any validations or anything like that. To have these validations, there is actually a jQuery plugin actually here in the scripts folder is this one. So if we just put it in our HTML, so if you just go to the HTML, there is none. There is these things, and these things are actually coming from this layout. So we don't want this validation all the time. We want it when we are actually creating things or modifying things then. And here, as you can also see, there is another thing called render section and required false. Render section means these are actually optional. When you need it, you just put it there, and the codes that you put in this render section will be actually situated in here or replaced in here rather than this one. So that's the idea. And these actually scripts are actually bundled, minified and bundled to optimize the performance, and this is actually done here in the bundle config file. In the bundle config, there is actually the bundles for these Bootstrap, and Bootstrap contains these scripts, and slash tilde sign means the root of the folder, and then scripts, and then so on. When actually in the layout, when it's actually saying Bootstrap, it's going to pull out these two scripts. As you can see, that's the idea. If we want to add that validation, it's also actually there, jQuery val. So we just have to write this line of code. Section script. Section means that it's going to create this section, render section, and then here we're just putting this script, and we're just calling it from this variable. That's the idea. So there could be multiple scripts. So whatever multiple scripts is there is going to be pulled out here. To optimize the web performance, because it's actually making many requests to the many files, and to have better performance in web, you have to minimize the request in web. To do that, we could actually use this bundle table dot enable optimization equals true. When you use that, if you just build now and just refresh the code, so I'm assuming that you already know HTML. That's the idea. So as you can see that it's actually minimized. So here are actually two files. It's now minimized to one file, and everything is minimized. So if I actually switch it to off, or just make it comment out and rebuild it, and if I just run it now, scripts are there, and if you click on it, there are also comments. So it's not really optimized. When you actually enable the optimization, you also have this concatenation and this minimization, and everything is there. So that's the idea of the optimization. If I now refresh this page, and now if I start typing, when I actually go to another field, it's going to say that it's not a valid field. So I'm getting a good validations by adding just one JavaScript plugin. That's the idea. Now we have seen the create view. It's working fine. However, here you can see the two create methods. In an object-oriented programming, if you have same two methods like this, you're going to have here, but we have a parameter. However, the web actually looks for the convention. So as you can see, the both places there is actually people/create. However, there is a notation that HTTP post. So if I just remove that one, and this could happen to you, trust me, many people have faced this. So if I again try to actually reload it, I have to actually build it first. So whatever you change in cs.cs file, you have to build the code, but whatever change you make in CS/HTML, you don't have to build it. So if I just run it, you're going to see an error, and that actually says that it's ambiguous because it doesn't know where to go from, because When you don't have any annotation, it means it could be work as post or it could work as get, both. So to minimize that confusion, we actually add this HTTP post. Now if we create on this one, this create button, then there is going to be a web post. That's the idea in every system. It's going to be same in PHP and so on. There is nothing different, nothing fancy. An idea that how it happens is like right there. You actually create a form and then you give action where the data of the inputs. So there is going to be the input fields. These are the input fields that are actually displayed there. These are the input fields. Whatever the data of the input fields will going to be posted at this URL. The MVC will know that this is a post method. When you are clicking on the create, it's know the post method, and then it's going to put the data in here, not there, this one. And each of the inputs will have a name property. This name property, not the ID. ID is not relevant here. Name is the important one. Each of the input will have a name property, and based on that name property, the fields are going to be sent. That's the main idea here. If I just put a debug point, because I like to debug when I actually show these things. Now I'm running in as debug mode. I could also run it from here, because when debug mode is attached it is attached with the assembly, so it doesn't matter where you actually put it. It's going to be always be debugged or be breakpoint there. So if I just put it Alim Karim, something like that, and let's say 111, and here I'm going to hit the breakpoint. So if I just hover my mouse over, I'm going to see there actually a better way to see is with the add watch method. I like to have the quick watch. I like this one better. So in the quick watch, in the results, I'm going to see that there is first name, last name, date of birth. If I just go to the base and then results view, all keys, and base, and then array, and then this one, and then this one here. So you're going to see the values. So there are actually long list of things that you're seeing that you could get the value. Whatever the value is passed, it's actually there. There are actually easier way to get to there, not like this, but I'm actually like to show you that how it's going to happen. There are actually many ways. The better way to show is like this: request and the name of the field. So if I'm looking for first name, just write first name, I get the value. That's the primary idea. So if I need the last name, I just say last name. Last name. This is how the form post works. It works also same in PHP or any other language. There is nothing different, but the magical things in MVC is that you don't have to pick everything like this, that you don't have to, let's say, like first name, and then request, and then the first name. You don't have to do that. Okay, so there are better ways to handle in MVC. The first way is to parameter your name. So if you say string first name, same name as the input fields, so string last name, and let me just put a breakpoint there, and we don't need this one actually. Keep a breakpoint there, and if we just run the debugger again, I'm going to remove other tabs. So now I just say Alim, say Karim, and let's put it as 111. Now in the breakpoint, if I just hover over the first name and last name, I don't have to do things like this request. All the fields that you put in there is always going to be parsed and give the values in to your parameters in a very efficient manner. So that's very nice in MVC. So there's another very nice feature rather than this one, which is if you have classes, then you could just cast it as class person. So the input fields, it's going to submit the input fields. So in the class that you have selected, if there is any input fields matches with the property of any class, if any of the input fields that has been submitted from this create, if matches with these properties, any of the properties, then it will be automatically parsed and give it to my person object. That's far better. So that's what we want. And to create and save it in the database, we just have to add it. That's it. So by adding this to the people DB, it's going to add it there, but it's not going to be executed as insert into query, not yet. So when you actually run this command, save changes, then it's going to look for how many data that you have added or modified, whatever you did. So this here we are adding, so it's going to execute that insert query here. So there could be multiple. So if you have added 10 person to this DB table, then there would be 10 insert commands will be executed by this save changes. You don't have to do anything more. That's a very nice feature. And in our form, there is already validation in client side, but a client could actually send data through Fiddler or any hacking tool. But as a developer, it's our job to verify if the data integrity is safe or not. To do that, you could actually use this model state property is valid. So if you run through this, you automatically know that it's actually successful. So when we are successful, we're going to this index page, index of this controller. We're going to there. So if we do not find it valid, we're going to send this same thing to the client again. So whatever you put it there, it's not really valid, and we're sending it the view again so that you could change it and give it back to us something valid. That's the idea. Now if we try to build it, we're going to see some errors, and to solve that error, what I'm going to do is put my person up there, and if there is any error, then I'm going to just throw an exception that cannot save data. Something simple. So if we now try to build, we're successful. Let's run our project and try to save our data. Okay, so let me just go from people.create. Let's try Alim Karim. So if we are successful, then we will be here. So it's coming from database because we already have done our index method. So we're successful up until now. So now what we want is having edit method. So if you just go to this edit, it's giving something different because we actually modified this to show you something different, this one. So let's just remove this and let's have a nice URL like everything else. So it says that edit/1 is my ID. When I'm actually modifying it, I'm up here. So this ID is going to come from this URL /1. This ID is going to become here, and this is actually configured in here, this ID. And ID is also set as ID is optional. So you don't have to always give the ID. And if you don't pass the action, it's going to assume that it's index. If you don't pass controller, it's going to assume that it's home. So that's the idea from the config. By default, the ID is going to be here by this convention /1 controller/action/ID. So we're going to have the ID here. So the next concept is searching it from the database and get it in our system. So db.people.find. So when I actually execute this command, I'm going to get a person, and behind the scene entity framework. So when we actually run these things, there's entity framework running the SQL against link to SQL. It's going to run select top one and then the star from table name people. So a query like this where primary key person ID is equals to ID. So this is the idea. So when you actually run this query is actually run through the SQL server. So after that, if we have a person, we're going to actually pass it through there, and the view is not actually created yet, so there is the error. So let's create the view edit from this edit template, and here we're going to select the person, That's it. So we have our edit view, and inside this edit view, now if we just build it, click on edit, it should bring the data of the person which we have clicked on there and put it right there. That's it. So we just did a little bit of coding and we get everything there. After that, if the save button is clicked on here, again the same procedure, the post is going to be happening here. So here we're going to say that it's a person type of object, so whatever is passed is going to be parsed, and then if we just try to update it in the database, because when this method is running, when every one of the single method is runs, there is no connection with this one. But where we're adding that the data context doesn't have that person here. So even though there is a person object we have searched from the database here in the get method, however when it's posting, the DB object doesn't contain the data of this one. So first thing what we have to do is tell our DB entity to add this one, because this is not exist in our DB entity. The collection doesn't have that, so we're adding it. We're not searching it, we're adding it, and by explicitly we're sending it as a state, and we're saying it's going to be modified. So here you can see that there are many states, so you could have unchanged, detached. Detached means whatever change you made, I don't want to save it in the database. So here I want to save the changes, so I'm saying modified. If it set it as modified, so database is going to know explicitly that it's not an addition, it's a modification, and when we actually execute that dv.save changes, database is going to execute the update command, not the insert, update command. That's the whole idea. So before doing that, what we want is model state dot is valid. So if it is valid, then we're actually saving it, and we're actually going to our index. So if it doesn't, then we're actually sending it the person to that edit view, and we also want to throw an error if we cannot save it. That's it. Let's build it. So after building, let's try to make it as new query. So every time when you first run the ASP pages, it takes some time because everything goes to binary first. So after running it few more times, it goes very fast. So as you can see that we are able to modify the database by these few lines of code. It's really nice. And here comes the delete part. So delete part is easy. So it's actually same as this one. So code, I'm going to just pick it there, and in the view I just wanted to create the view. It should be created from this delete template person. That's it, we're done. When delete is clicked on this submit button, this input submit, so delete is going to push it there, again there. So we want this person, and here we just wanted to detach it rather than inputting it. We're going to detach it, so sorry, remove it, so delete it and save changes. So it will actually execute the delete command, and if we're not successful, then we could actually throw an exception. Finally, if we are successful, we still wanted to, let's say we react to this one, this view again. So there is something wrong in the view, but there is no way currently that we could say that this is wrong, because there is no chance that there could be wrong, because you were just deleting it, everything is already there, you're not modifying it. So there is a less chance that you could have modified data, unless you were trying to hack it from somewhere else. That's a different story. So after that, if I just click on this remove or delete button, I can see a nice view. So if I click on this one, it's actually removed. So because next time I'm not seeing any valid data, so I might have missed something. So if valid something. So if I just go to my people database directly, I don't see any data. So it's there, so it's not really removed. Okay, let's try to debug it and let's see what's going on wrong. Okay, so as you can see that I've tried to actually have the isValidate. So in isValidate, if I just go through, you can see that it's actually false. So if you just go more, you will have all the keys and you'll have all the values. So if you go to each value, you'll see that error. So there is an error, first name is required. So I actually don't need to do that in remove part, because we're not sending any information to actually remove it. To just pass it as a person, similar to the person, just pass it to as a post, then we're just removing it. No actual data actually. The better way should be like this. If you have person, so the better way should be like this, finding the person, because we only have the ID. If we just go to the delete URL, you should see an ID. Okay, so ID is not there. So whatever we actually wanted to pass, we could actually write it there. So HTML dot text input hidden field. So we want hidden and hidden for. So there are two types of every input. So one is for. So for gives you a nice intelligence of each one of your properties. So we just want to have this ID, person ID. So rather than getting a person, we just wanted to have int of ID, person ID, and it's giving us an error. So the better way would be, again, try to have a person. So again, it will try to parse, but we only get the person ID, and from the person ID we actually want to find the person, and from the person find the person, and person ID. So person ID is only there, but not the whole thing. So we're getting the actual person and then removing it from the database, setting as a flag to remove it, and then we're actually removing it. That's the idea. So let's try to do it again. Okay, let's run it. Okay, so now if we try to go to the person and remove and delete /1, see the ID, and then if we just click on this, yes, person is removed successfully. So we have done it, and let's say create another one. Let's say Alim2 and Karim. Just keep it simple and fast. That's it. So we're able to actually create data, modify data, and so on. Details, you do it by yourself. I don't want to bore you. So this is all basic ideas that how MVC work. However, if you just look at it, we have done only few things. We also write very simple codes, not many complicated codes, not any SQL codes. Everything is done by our object-oriented model and entity framework. Every framework is helping us a lot. However, if you just look at this one, there is no pagination and there is no nice searching system. So if you want to actually build anything like that, it takes some time. So and it's not really that much nicely formatted. So if you want to format it, it also takes some time. But however, I want I actually forgot to show one thing, because when you have these fields, as you can see, the name of the fields are first name, which doesn't look good anywhere. So if you want to actually change the outlooking and field, you could actually go to the class and change it like this, display. So there are actually other properties inside display annotation. So name could be one. I could say first name space like that. However, there is another annotation called display name, which is under, sorry, I made a mistake, which is under components, I think, component model. Okay, so this one. Okay, so here you could also write the name, first name from display name. These are the two ways that you could actually change the display name. So when you have both of those, this one will win. It not because that this one is on top, this one is going to win. That's the order. So it doesn't matter if you put it right this or put it on top, doesn't matter. This one is going to win all the time. So let me show you a demo. So if I just refresh it, once you refresh it, it's going to be refreshing every page, so you don't have to go and change everywhere. It's that is smart to put everything in the right place. First name, this one is winning, not this one. So if I just remove this one and again build it, if I just refresh again, so as you can see that when display is not there, then this one will be shown, and it's not like it's only here. So if I go to the person now, people now, you can see that name is also different here, and if I go to the create page, it's also different there. So this is how MVC actually works. So it's fan out. So how it's actually fan out, if you just go there, it actually says display name for, rather than this thing or saying it as first name with strongly typed, it actually says that display name for this. So this method is going to figure out what its annotation is. If there is none, then the field name is going to be displayed. That's the idea. So before wrapping up the session, I would like to show you a magic. So whatever we have done so far, this 1 hour, it also can be done by few seconds. And the way we did it is to teach you how MVC work and the detailed things that you could do with MVC. However, there is another option. If you go to the controller, we have a people controller. So let's make a people controller 2. You could make any name controller. So this time I'm choosing MVC5 controller with views using entity framework. So using entity framework, if I choose that one, and now I just give my model name, which is a person, and then context, which my database, and the name of the controller, let's say I name it as 2, people 2. So if I just add it, you're going to see everything is done for us. We don't actually have to write anything. Everything is done for us. Very nice. So now if I just run my project, so let's go to people and people 2. So you see the exact same thing. If I go to the add new, and you're seeing the display name as well, everything is fan out everywhere. So Alim3, let's try Alim3. Cream, date of birth, and here I also didn't even add the plugin, validation plugin, but if I actually keep it as blank and try to do it, it is going to verify that it has a invalid field. So plugin is also added. We don't have to do that. So everything is there. So everything is working. Also details is there. And if we just try to remove first one, remove. So everything is working. So everything we have done so far, it can be done in 1 second. That's the idea. But the reason that I have done it so that you understand that how things work. That was the main focus. And another thing that I would like to add to this project is a searching feature, because there is no searching feature. Let's say our first one, we would like to add the searching feature. So if I go to the first one, it should look same. So let's say after that we want to add the searching feature, and we don't want it to be very lucrative or something like that. We just wanted to add the searching feature. So if you remember, you just have to add a form, because form knows where to post the things. So let's add an action URL. So in the action URL, you could just say that posted in people URL slash search. So we're searching in people controller, and then search method. There everything would be sent. So method for that would be post, And to have a search type input, we just create a type equal text input, and that's it. And we could actually give it a placeholder which will give a nice watermarky thing. So search ... So if I just refresh the people, you'll see there is a search bar. It doesn't look so nice, but just bear with me. We could actually add a class from control, and Bootstrap will give us a nice control. And if I wanted to put it in the right corner, I could use the pull right CSS, put it in the right side. Looks nice, right? Whatever we have done, it also can be done in MVC way. So you could use the using form. So if I just grab the code, because I don't want to write things, HTML begin. So this is the idea of the form. You could exactly, if you want to post to the same action that you have came from. So we have came from index, as you know, this is index view. So we have came from index view. So if you just write this, then the action, it will automatically create this line of code, automatically create this from tag automatically and close it up there. So whatever we have done manually, it can be done like this. And if you don't pass anything, it will assume that you are going to pass the URL to index, post it to index. That's the main idea. So if you want to pass it at this URL, you could actually use these parameters. There are several parameters. The first one is action. So we want to pass it to search, and since we're using the same controller, we actually don't need to specify the controller name. But if you want, you can, and you could also specify the method. So if you want something get goes by the URL, and post gets invisibly with posting. That's the idea. So for now, we just wanted to keep it simple. So whatever we have done by this line, it can be done by this. This is the MVC way. Here I have done a mistake. So if I just go through the parameters, you're going to see that only one parameter expects for an object, and route values are different, not like this object. You have to create route values like this new. So that's why it's not complaining, because object could handle strings as well. And the idea of checking is to refresh it and go to the inspect element, and you're going to see that it's not the URL that we're looking for. We want to have people/search. That's what we're looking for. And to have that, we could just say the controller name, people. That's it. So the method is not there. I have ReSharper installed, so it's actually red. I already know. So we have to create the method here. So let's create the method. I already have a code snippet that I have written before. So the idea of the method is whatever pass in the query. Here is the query name. It would be automatically passed, and after that we're going to split it by the space, and we're going to have a list of strings where it is actually divided by the spaces. After that, I'm actually doing a link operation, link and lambda expression. So I do have an entire video on entity framework and lambda expression. If you like, you can check it out. Then it would make much more sense. And I'm doing a where. Inside a where actually expects to have a true false, either true or false. The first thing you write is actually every single entity name. That if it is a people, then I'm saying it person. So person means that every single item in people represents by this person. So again, I am actually taking this split texts. So it is also a list of text. So if you just go there, string arrays. So by this string arrays, if any returns true, so any of those if exist by the first name. So when you actually use this contains, first name dot contains, it actually generates a like query. So if you are familiar with the SQL, then you'd know it. So it actually generates some like query, something like that. We're going to also see the queries which actually generate. So we also have or there. So it could be either first name search or last name search. We don't know. Whatever item that we get, we put it in the people. Since we already have list view, so we're going to use it. So in the view, rather than saying it just like this view people, then it would expect for a view of search. But we have a list view already, which is actually the index. If you see that index, we're just passing it as the people object model. In the index of the people, it actually holds it as immutable list of collection. We already have it, so why rewrite or remake the things we already have? Reuse it. To reuse it, we can just name the view name, which is index. So it's going to use this view instead of this the convention. We're breaking the convention and we're passing the people. That's the idea. Sometimes it's a good practice, sometimes it's a bad practice, depending on the code that you are delivering. So if you think of dry, it's actually dry. We're not repeating anything. However, if you're thinking about the convention, then it's actually breaking it. So either way, it's a trade-off. So you have to think about it. Let me just refresh it. And the first thing, I'm going to check the forum URL, that where it's actually posting. So it's actually not done yet. So yes, so we're posting at search. So if I now try to have Alim, it works. So if I say Alim Karim, let's open the SQL profiler so that we could see our searches, that what's actually going on. Let me add new different name. Let's say Elias Roman and say 111. Or let me add another more. Let's say Karim Dew. Let's say John Doe. Sure. So we have three things. So if I write John, we get the John. If we write Doe, we get the Doe. If you say John Doe, because there could be, let's say, Jane Doe, something like that. So if you say Doe, we're getting both. But if you want to specific the John Doe, you say John Doe. We have made a mistake. John Doe. So okay, so it's actually ORing, so we're not getting any beneficial. So it's actually OR. So let me start a query and query profiler, and we're going to understand that what's actually going on. If I remember correctly, it's actually going on in SQL Express. Let's run it. Every time, let's say I try Alim Karim, actually made those queries. So if I just go there, see the query, how it's actually written. So Alim Karim. So it's actually also passed as a parameter, so that no one can hack into your system. So we could actually pause it and see that what's actually happened in the SQL query. Karim, and then from, so it's actually not the like query. However, it actually does it like this, character index by like this. However, the end result is actually the similar kind. So the ultimate idea is when you use the contains actually does this thing. So they actually rewritten the query what they think the best way to do it, but the ultimate result is actually the same, the like operator. That's the idea. Thank you for watching the video. I am Alimul Karim. And you could actually reach me at alimkarim.com, and you could get the project URLs by this link or by this URL, or you could just search by AUK-Git. Then you get in my repository and find this project, and you will get the project files. That's it. Thank you.